Do you struggle with emotional regulation? Do you struggle with being angry as a mom, or regulating your feelings of overwhelm, frustration, or irritation? Maybe you struggle with depression, anxiety, or panic attacks. These are real things that we struggle with. I never knew how to regulate my emotions, and this is something I've had to learn. I'm going to be sharing with you today what I've learned about managing your emotions. All right, so first of all are your emotions bad? Now, the Bible includes stories of people who had real emotions. If you think of Joseph, who wept when he was taken to Egypt, and then he wept again with joy when he met his brothers after so many years of being in Egypt. Real emotions. Elijah was depressed when he received death threats from Jezebel, and he went and he just ran away into the wilderness, and he didn't want to live anymore. David expressed both positive and negative emotions in the Psalms. He was actually pretty good at naming his emotions and saying what he felt. Emotions are a real part of being authentic, of being a real person, and our challenge is figuring out how to manage them so that they don't rule our lives. I just want to say this though, emotional regulation isn't about never having a meltdown, about always being in perfect control of your emotional state. Emotional regulation means that you might hit some wobbles and get off kilter and off balance, but you know how to come back to center. You know how to regulate yourself. You know how to deal with the negative feelings and bounce back from them instead of getting stuck in them. So what is the purpose of emotions? Why did God even give us emotions? Because sometimes they can be a curse. So, sometimes we see emotions as just a nuisance, or that they're childish or weak. That when we have emotions, when we have strong emotions or negative emotions particularly, that it makes us weak. And we tend to believe that smart people aren't emotional people and emotional people aren't smart. But the reality is that the smartest people are those who use their emotions to help them think, and who use their thoughts to manage their emotions. So we've got to learn to listen to what our feelings are telling us, and then figure out a way to act upon them to better our situation in our life. So we need to pay attention to our emotions, but we shouldn't be ruled by them. Think of it like this. Your thoughts and your reason and your logic are one aspect of you, your thinking, and then your feeling is another aspect. I liken it to a train, that the engine is like your thoughts and your reason and your logic. Your emotions are the cars that come behind, and they are being pulled by the engine of the train. And when your reason and logic are in control, your emotions will follow along like the train pulling its cars, like it should. So I can choose to be happy even when I feel down. I can choose to sing when I feel grumpy. And eventually those feelings will come into line and they will follow along. But when we allow emotions to be in charge, this train is now being pushed from behind, and disastrous things could happen. I might make rash decisions, I might say things I regret, or I might behave in embarrassing ways because my emotions are in control. Now in Isaiah 1 verse 18, God says, "Come now and let us reason together." So here we see the reasoning part of the mind. Come, let's operate on logic and reason. But there's a balance to this, and we find it in Hebrews 4 verse 15, where it says, "For we have not an high priest which cannot be touched with the feeling of our infirmities, but was in all points tempted like as we are, yet without sin." So here we are finding that God has feelings. He is touched by our feelings. He's saying, your feelings are valid, but they also need to come under the control of reason. Okay, so you want the engine to be in charge of your train, all right? You want your reason and your logic to be in charge of this train. And that doesn't mean that your emotions are not important. It just means that they are in the right place. Okay, God gave us emotions for a reason, and the function of our emotions are many. Emotions are our body's way of communicating with us and driving us to do things. All right, now if we use them in a healthy way, if we use our emotions in a healthy way, they will drive us to do the right things with them instead of acting in the wrong ways. So fear, normally we think of fear, this is a bad thing, but it's actually, the purpose of fear is to tell you to escape. It's self-preservation. Anger pushes you to fight back and protect yourself. Love drives us to care for our spouse, our children, and others. Passion drives us to procreate, to create and invent. Hurt pushes us to correct a situation. In other words, what I'm sharing with you here are these are the positive positive uses of these emotions, the positive functions of these emotions. Sadness tells us that we're losing something important. Compassion pushes us to help others. Disgust tells us to avoid something, and curiosity drives us to explore and learn. So emotions are incredibly useful tools to help us survive and thrive. We may have learned, though, to erase, to deny, to push underground, and sometimes be ashamed of our emotions. And if we don't listen to our emotions, we're operating at a disadvantage. Pushing away this vital source of information makes us vulnerable and potentially less productive. It also makes it harder to experience life to its fullest, because if we're squashing emotions, if we're squashing negative emotions, we are also going to be squashing positive emotions. That's just the nature of the beast. What happens then when you push emotions underground? Because a lot of us do that. Well, your emotions can become physical symptoms like GI distress, headaches, back pain. They can turn into depression, problems with eating, sleep challenges. Your memory, your concentration will be affected, social isolation, your energy will be sapped. It can cause you to explode at random times because you're not dealing with the emotions and figuring out what am I actually feeling right now and processing those things, and we suppress them, and then we have a volcanic eruption when it all gets too much. Or we have the slightest little trigger that just lights the fire, and we have a massive explosion. When you push emotions underground, you can aggravate your anxiety or panic attacks. It keeps relationships and friendships superficial, lacking depth. It can make you feel empty and unfulfilled, and it can cause you to question the very purpose and value of your life. Like, what am I even doing? Why do I do what I do? Why am I even here? According to Dr. Caroline Leaf, emotional warning signals are invitations to look inward. Anxiety and depression are normal human reactions to things that are going on in your life. They are words that are telling you to pay attention to something that's happening. They're not illnesses or diseases of the brain. And I know that might be a bit controversial, but that's what she says. How do we take control of our emotions? Step number 1 is to recognize and label our emotions. All right, so I feel sad. I'm frustrated. I feel hurt when you treat me that way. When you identify and name your feelings to yourself or to another person, you're actually taking something from the inside and putting it on the outside, and you're making the known unknown. You're taking charge of your inner workings. Do this little exercise with me. Take a minute, close your eyes, and just take a deep breath and blow it out. Pay attention to what's going on inside of you right now. What do you feel? Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Focus on your internal experience. Keep your focus on what am I feeling right now. Maybe feeling a little bit anxious. You may be feeling awkward because this feels weird. You're sitting here with your eyes closed. You may be feeling joyful. Maybe you're feeling weary. Maybe you're on the edge of a panic attack. What are you feeling right now? Try to identify feeling words to express it. And then once you have a feeling word where you can put it in one word, angry, sad, happy, lonely, try to identify, why am I feeling what I'm feeling right now? And just sit with that. Stop the video if you need to. And just sit with that for a few minutes. You have to learn to sit with yourself and pay attention to your internal world. What's going on inside of me right now? And many of us have learned to just ignore that part of us because possibly we learned that your feelings don't matter, or this is not good, they will get discounted and it's not safe to even go there. But I want to encourage you, it is safe to go there. In order to connect with your real self, you have to know what's going on inside of you at any given time. Alright, so if this is a challenge for you, download the emotion tracker that I've got in the description box below. It's free. All you have to do is daily sit down and do this exercise of, what am I feeling right now? Close your eyes, pay attention, and write those feelings down, name them. And having that record will help you to possibly see some patterns or to identify your most common feelings, and then that will help you to start processing and dealing with those emotions. So download that emotion tracker. All right. Step number 2 of how to deal with your emotions is accept and trust your own feelings. Whoa. Now, before you throw me out, I know this may sound a little bit scary, to trust your own feelings, but I thought the Bible says that he that trusteth in his heart is a fool. That's Proverbs 28 verse 26. And that is true. But what I'm saying to you is this. Trust your feelings in the sense that they're trying to tell you something. Doesn't mean you have to act on them, but they're trying to let you know something's going on here below the surface. Hello, okay? So I'm not asking you to act on your feelings, just know what they are. And trust them in the sense that they are messengers. They're letting you know something's going on below the surface. So it's what we do with our feelings that matters, not the feelings themselves. You don't have bad feelings and you shouldn't have these feelings. Allow them. Say, okay, you're here. What are you wanting to say to me? Why is this here? What am I really, what's the purpose of this? Where is this coming from? So feelings don't always make rational sense, but they always exist for a reason. And with every emotion, your body is trying to send you a message. Emotions can be very powerful, but they do need to be managed. And the reality is that emotions that are hidden have a lot of power over us. But when we're aware of our emotions, we can take charge of them. If we deny that we have feelings, that doesn't mean they go away. They're still there. They're still impacting your life. They're still causing you to act, think, feel in certain ways. And choose in certain ways. So pay attention to the inner workings of your heart and your mind. All right, step number 3 in this process is learn to surrender. And this is where I actually learned how to even start labeling my emotions, because if I was going to surrender myself to God, I had to know what I was surrendering. I couldn't say, well, I just surrender myself to you. I had to learn to recognize, you know what, I'm feeling very frustrated right now. Aha, there, I've labeled it. I can now give that to God and say, Lord, take this from me. I give it to you. Please change my heart. So it doesn't mean that when we surrender our feelings to God that we nuke our feelings and they don't exist anymore. It allows us to process them. It allows God to come and do that reasoning that he speaks of in Isaiah 1 verse 18, where he says, come now, let us reason together. Let's talk about this feeling. Why is it there? Okay, is this appropriate? What can we do to fix it? Give that to me. Let me give you that exchange, that exchange of heart, where that Ezekiel 36 speaks of, where it says, I will give you a new heart and a new spirit will I put within you. So surrendering our feelings to God helps us to get balance. Sometimes our feelings stem from selfishness or from the lower nature, our carnal nature that the Bible speaks of in Romans 8, or they can stem from past trauma, and therefore they may not be balanced. And surrendering them to God allows him to come in and remove the rubbish and purify our hearts so that our feelings can be accurate and that they can help us to live in a more healthy way. If you find that certain feelings are always there, they remain and they just don't go away no matter how much you surrender, then that's a sign that you maybe need to dig deeper. And we're going to go into that in a moment. You will find that you may well have certain emotions that are your go-to emotions. For some of us, it might be depression. For some of us, it might be I'm annoyed or I'm frustrated. You always just end up going into frustration. It's good to start exploring the source. Where are these things coming from? Why are they there? Step number 4 is to recognize the deeper cause. Sometimes old feelings are triggered by present circumstances, and we have to learn to recognize that what's old cues and what are appropriate responses to current circumstances. Correct feelings or appropriate feelings can be magnified and exaggerated by our history. And I'm going to go dig into trauma and triggers in another video, so keep an eye out for that. So remember that your feelings can also be triggered by a number of everyday things, such as you're not taking control of your life, you've got no planning, you've got no routine, and so life is just dragging you around by the scruff of the neck and you've got feelings, okay? It could be that your children are not listening to you and you're not disciplining them well. It may be that you just don't know how to regulate your emotions. And this is why I've taught you, begin by just observing them. That's the very first step to managing your emotions. It may be that you grew up in an angry household and your go-to response is just anger because that's all you saw. That is how your parents dealt with anything in your home. It may be that your feelings are being triggered by the fact that you are doing too much and you're not saying no enough. It may also be that you're not getting enough time alone to just process and internalize and work through stuff in your head. Feelings can also be triggered by the fact that you're stuck in negative thinking. That you're asking yourself, why does this have to be so hard? And no one ever listens to me, and no one cares about me. And so you're thinking these negative thoughts all the time. And your thoughts, remember, impact your feelings. Our feelings impact our thoughts, and our thoughts impact our feelings. It's like this emotional circuit that we can get stuck in. And when we change our thinking, we can change our feelings. That's why I gave you that illustration of the train that can, your logic and your reason and your thinking must be in control so that your feelings follow. It may be that you're worried about something subconsciously and then you start acting irritably and irrationally with your loved ones because there's something else completely unrelated that's triggering feelings of anxiety. It could be things like finances, a friendship, extended family struggles, or issues between you and your spouse. Okay, step number 5 is learn to express your feelings effectively. Expressing your feelings effectively doesn't mean that you express them passively or aggressively. It means that you learn to express them assertively and with compassion. Now, what does that mean? How do you express emotions assertively? Assertiveness just simply means that you are expressing what you think and feel in a way that the other person can take it. In other words, it's respectful, you're not shouting, you're not yelling, you're not accusing, you're taking ownership of your feelings. Combined with that, you've got to have an awareness of how what you are saying is impacting the other person. So it's perfectly fine to say to your children, Mommy's feeling sad or upset or angry right now. I just need a few minutes to go and pray, to rest or be alone. So this is modeling to your children how to manage emotions. When your emotions are getting out of control, you withdraw and you deal with it, even if you have to withdraw inside your head and just deal with it in there. But recognize, whoa, I need to do something here, okay? If it's not something in your home, but if someone is pressuring you into doing something that you don't want to do, perfectly fine to say, you know what, I'm not comfortable with giving you an answer right now and making this decision right now. I need to think and pray about this a bit more. Can I get back to you tomorrow? So that feeling of pressure and feeling of, I better please this person, is eased, and you can step back and decide what is it that you really want to do. So now you can't control how the other person is going to respond and react to what you say, but no matter what they do, you will likely feel better for having expressed your feelings. We need to learn to express our feelings effectively in a healthy way, not in an accusing way, in a way where we own it. I'm feeling this right now, and I just need a bit of time to process this. In summary, emotions are your friends. Stop suppressing them. Listen to what they're saying to you and use them to improve your life. So I'm not giving you license to be ruled by your emotions. Remember the train? I'm giving you permission to allow yourself to feel what you really feel so that your emotions can contribute to your life in a healthy way. Don't forget to download your free emotion tracker so that you can get started with the emotional regulation process and begin to be aware of what's going on inside of you. Until next time.